The screen flickers, revealing a grainy photograph dated June 1944. A Japanese cruiser, scarred and listing, its bow shattered. Nearby, a smudge on the radar console, a broken radio intercept, its last words indecipherable. The paradox is stark. How could a fleet, once dominant in the Pacific, be shredded in days by vessels barely a decade old? The Allen M. Sumner-class destroyers, sleek and modest in size, sliced through the Imperial Japanese Navy like a surgical blade through silk. But the Eoi, static-laden intercept hints at a deeper failure. Was Tokyo's command blinded by hubris or deception? The question lingers. How was this swift devastation possible when Japan's fleet was vast and battle-hardened? Beneath the surface of this calamity lies a clash of industrial ambition and strategic blindness. In 1942, amid the Pacific War's escalating fury, American naval engineers pushed to outmatch Japanese destroyers that had once ruled the waves. Sumner-class was born of this urgency, designed to counter the long lance torpedoes and fast cruisers that Japanese naval architects prized. An archived blueprint from a U.S. Navy dockyard shows a compact but heavily armed silhouette, 6 5-inch 38 caliber guns, a dozen torpedo tubes, and near impenetrable radar technology for its time. Meanwhile, on the Japanese side, an engineer at Mitsubishi recalls the growing concern over fuel supplies and stretched shipyards. Was the U.S. industrial machine's relentless pace the secret weapon that Japan never anticipated? Or did intelligence failures shroud the true threat? Why did the Imperial Navy underestimate a class of destroyers that seemed, on paper, less imposing? The anatomy of the Allen M. Sumner class reveals a lethal balance of firepower and maneuverability that defied conventional wisdom. Measuring just under 376 feet, these destroyers packed a punch that belied their modest displacement of around 2,200 tons. Their dual-purpose 5-inch guns offered rapid fire against both surface and aerial targets, while the inclusion of advanced radar, still rare among Japanese vessels, gave them an uncanny edge in nocturnal combat. Yet, despite these advantages, the ships had vulnerabilities, limited armor, and a dense superstructure that could be a death trap if hit. A rare camera shot from a surviving crewman shows a Sumner's radar antenna, a spiderweb of metal against a stormy sky. Silent, invisible, deadly. How did the Japanese fleet fail to anticipate that such seemingly fragile ships could outgun and outmaneuver their own giants? What intelligence gaps allowed this imbalance to fester unnoticed? The first test came abruptly during the Battle of the Philippine Sea in mid-June 1944. The Japanese squadron commander expected a drawn-out engagement, confident in the superiority of his cruisers and battleships. Instead, the Sumner-class destroyers, operating in hunter-killer groups, executed swift, coordinated strikes under cover of darkness. According to U.S. Navy pilot reports, their radar-directed gunfire was so precise that Japanese ships were caught off guard even before visual contact. The sound of exploding shells and ruptured steel filled the air, while onboard Japanese radios emitted only static and confusion. An intercepted Japanese tactical message references "unseen daggers in the night," a phrase whose origin remains debated. Could such a small class of ships truly dictate the battle's outcome? Why was the Imperial Command so unprepared for these guerrilla tactics on the high seas? In response, Japanese naval strategists scrambled to adapt. New tactical manuals emphasized dispersed formations and increased reliance on night-fighting techniques, hoping to blunt the Sumner's radar advantage. Mitsubishi engineers rushed to retrofit older destroyers with improved anti-aircraft batteries and electronic countermeasures, though production delays and resource shortages hampered these efforts. A secret memo from the Naval High Command reveals frustration over communication breakdowns, and the inability to match American industrial output. Yet, despite these measures, encounters with Sumner-class destroyers continued to erode Japanese naval strength. Was this failure a symptom of deeper systemic weaknesses? Could Tokyo's incremental adaptations ever counterbalance the U.S. Navy's technological leap? Why did the countermeasures arrive too late or prove too little? By late 1944, the tide had turned irrevocably. The map of the Pacific theater showed once dominant Japanese fleets reduced to fragmented remnants, their supply lines severed. Sumner-class destroyers, now battle-scarred but operational, prowled aggressively, exploiting every weakness. A declassified protocol details emergency orders to preserve remaining capital ships and avoid direct confrontation. The crisis was not merely military, but existential. Japan's naval power, long a symbol of imperial might, was unraveling under a new kind of maritime warfare. A faded photograph from a Japanese naval base shows commanders gathered around a map, faces etched with despair. What was the real cost of underestimating these destroyers? Did the Imperial Navy fully grasp the strategic implications before it was too late? Or was there a hidden calculus that sealed their fate? Each episode is a document I pull from the dust of the archives. Share your own stories. Many of you have relatives who lived through that time, and your words help connect personal memory with archival evidence. Stay curious. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode tomorrow. As the calendar flipped to early 1945, the remnants of the Imperial Navy faced an unrelenting foe beneath the Pacific's gray skies. Sumner-class destroyers, now battle-tested and integrated into fast carrier task forces, operated with surgical precision. A recently uncovered diary entry from a U.S. destroyer officer describes the eerie calm before dawn. The sea was glass, but beneath the surface, shadows moved. With deadly intent, the Japanese fleet, fragmented and forced into defensive postures, attempted to regroup near the Philippine archipelago. Yet, radar contact reports show that Sumner-class vessels intercepted convoys with disturbing ease, their sonar and radar systems revealing every movement. How could seasoned Japanese commanders fail to conceal their fleet from these ghost ships? Was there a fundamental misunderstanding of new naval technology, or did desperation push them into fatal risks? Meanwhile, intelligence intercepts reveal that Japanese high command debated deploying kamikaze tactics not only against aircraft carriers, but also directly targeting destroyers. A weathered tactical sketch shows a kamikaze pilot's intended trajectory aimed at a Sumner's bridge, an act born of fear and frustration. The destroyer's agility and layered anti-aircraft defenses, however, frequently neutralized these suicide attacks before impact. A radio log captures the clipped voice of an American destroyer captain reporting multiple inbound bogeys, all neutralized by 5-inch rapid fire. Did the rise of such suicidal measures indicate an admission of defeat or a final refusal to yield? And why did these desperate maneuvers fail to stem the tide against the smaller, faster American warships? At the same time, the strain on Japanese shipyards grew unbearable. Archival photos show half-finished hulls languishing on dry docks, surrounded by smoke and debris from relentless air. Reads the Mitsubishi engineer's memoirs recall the chronic shortages of steel and skilled labor, compounded by frantic attempts to retrofit older destroyers with radar and stronger armaments. But these stopgap efforts could not match the inherent design advantages of the Sumner class: speed, firepower, and electronic warfare capabilities all combined. A confidential report warns that our destroyers remain vulnerable to radar-guided gunfire and torpedo attacks. How much did Japan's industrial and technological deficits contribute to the rapid depletion of their fleet? Could any miracle in production have turned the tide, or was the strategic imbalance already irreversible? Amid these cascading failures, a crucial encounter unfolded near the coast of Okinawa in March 1945. A squadron of Sumner-class destroyers engaged a Japanese naval group attempting to disrupt American amphibious landings. The battle, captured in a rare film reel discovered decades later, shows rapid exchanges of gunfire in close quarters, water spouts from near misses, and flaming wrecks sinking beneath the waves. Japanese destroyers, despite their ferocity, were outgunned and outmaneuvered. Survivors' testimonies speak of disorientation and the blinding glare of radar-directed salvos. Could this brutal skirmish be the final proof that the Allen M. Sumner class had shattered Japan's naval doctrine? Or did it merely expose the deeper collapse of command and control that sealed the Imperial Navy's fate? Even as defeat loomed, Japanese naval officers clung to hope, attempting last-ditch deployments of new torpedo variants and night-fighting tactics. Training manuals from late 1944 emphasized silence and evasion, urging destroyer crews to avoid direct engagement. Yet, intercepted communications betray a growing despair. Reports of crews questioning orders, of commanders doubting the efficacy of their own strategies. One fragmentary message ends abruptly. The Sumner-class destroyers. Impossible, too. What was the unspoken conclusion? Did the Imperial Navy's final acts reveal a recognition of technological and tactical inferiority that no doctrine could overcome? Or was there still an unacknowledged factor that history has yet to uncover? In the final months before Japan's surrender, the relentless pressure exerted by the Allen M. Sumner-class destroyers transformed the Pacific into a hunting ground, where the Imperial Navy's shadows were hunted and extinguished. A recently declassified war diary from a Japanese destroyer captain describes the suffocating tension aboard his vessel. Every sonar ping was a heartbeat closer to oblivion. The Sumner's combination of advanced sonar, radar, and rapid-fire artillery created an environment where surprise was impossible and retreat perilous. Photographs taken by U.S. Navy reconnaissance aircraft show smoke plumes marking countless Japanese destroyers sunk or damaged beyond repair. Yet, behind these images lies a deeper question. How did Japan's naval command fail to anticipate the scale and speed of this destruction? Was it a failure of intelligence, a misjudgment of American naval production, or a deeper strategic blindness? Tokyo's final naval communications offer a haunting glimpse into the unraveling command structure. A fragmented radio transcript from April 1945 captures a hurried message. Enemy destroyers, crossing our defensive lines. Overwhelming firepower. Request immediate air support. No response. The more silence that followed was deafening. With airfields bombed and carrier forces stretched thin, the Imperial Navy's surface fleet was left exposed. A faded map, annotated with frantic scrawlings, reveals desperate attempts to reroute convoys and withdraw remaining assets. But the Sumner-class destroyers pressed forward relentlessly, their crews skilled in coordinated tactics that blended radar tracking with torpedo strikes. How did such a small class of ships maintain operational dominance despite dwindling American resources? What was the true cost of Japan's inability to protect its lifelines in these final desperate months? A hidden layer of this story emerges in the personal accounts of Japanese sailors who faced the Sumners. In interviews conducted decades later, many recall a chilling sense of invisibility. The destroyers seemed to appear from nowhere, striking with precision before vanishing into the night. One veteran's sketchbook shows a haunting image, the silhouette of a destroyer's mast lit by searchlights, looming like a specter over a burning ship. These testimonies hint at a psychological warfare waged by technology as much as by firepower. Could the psychological impact of facing an unseen, technologically superior enemy have undermined Japanese morale as decisively as physical losses? And why has this intangible aspect remained overshadowed in official histories? As the war drew to an inexorable close, the Allen M. Sumner-class destroyers stood as a testament to a new era of naval warfare, where radar, speed, and coordinated firepower redefined the battlefield. In the wreckage of Japan's once mighty fleet, the imprint of these destroyers was unmistakable. Yet, buried in the shadows of victory lies a haunting question. Was the rapid destruction of the Imperial Navy by these vessels a foregone conclusion once the industrial and technological tides had turned, or could different decisions have altered the course? What secrets remain locked in the silent hulls resting beneath the Pacific, waiting for the next historian to uncover? In the immediate aftermath of hostilities, Allied naval investigators combed Pacific wreck sites, seeking to understand the full extent of the destruction wrought by the Allen M. Sumner-class destroyers. Sonar mapping revealed the skeletal remains of sunken Japanese warships, their broken hulls scattered across the ocean floor like discarded toys. Among these, the pattern of damage was striking. Concentrated, shell holes consistent with rapid 5-inch gunfire, torpedo blasts in precise sequences. A detailed report from a U.S. Navy salvage officer noted the eerie uniformity. These weren't chaotic battles, but calculated surgical strikes. Photographs taken during dives show twisted steel ribs and mangled superstructures, artifacts of overwhelming firepower. But in the silence of these underwater graves, a more unsettling truth emerges. How had the Imperial Navy's once vaunted resilience so completely shattered? Was it merely superior technology, or had deeper fractures? Morale, command, logistics played an equal role. Behind the scenes, post-war interrogations of surviving Japanese naval officers unveiled a candid reckoning. One admiral reflected bitterly on the underestimation of the Sumner-class destroyers, describing them as small ships with the eyes of hawks and the sting of vipers. Another officer cited a critical intelligence failure. We lacked real-time data on their radar capabilities. We fought in darkness while they had the dawn. A cache of wartime documents disclosed that Japan's attempts to develop comparable radar systems were hampered by resource shortages and internal skepticism among senior staff. A faded schematic of a prototype radar unit, incomplete and never deployed, symbolizes this lost technological race. Could Japan's unwillingness to fully embrace these innovations have sealed its naval doom? Or was the cultural resistance to change a silent killer lurking beneath battlefield losses? Simultaneously, American naval strategists began to analyze the wider implications of the Sumner-class's success. In a confidential post-war memorandum, a task force commander noted that these destroyers had redefined naval engagement rules, emphasizing electronic warfare, speed, and coordinated multi-ship tactics over sheer tonnage. Archival footage of training exercises shows crews practicing radar-guided gunfire and night maneuvers, skills that had given them an edge against Japanese forces. A technical manual from the era highlights how the integration of fire control radar transformed small ships into lethal platforms. But this strategic evolution raises uncomfortable questions. Did the U.S. Navy foresee the full extent of their innovations' impact? And how did this shift influence post-war naval doctrines worldwide, especially in former adversaries' fleets? In parallel, cryptographic analysts uncovered fragments of Japanese communications, revealing internal debates about the changing nature of naval warfare. One coded message, partially decrypted, lamented that the old ways cannot defeat the unseen enemy. Our swords are dull against their shadows. This metaphor encapsulates the disorientation felt by Japanese commanders confronting radar-guided attacks from ships that seemed to materialize from nowhere. A faded photograph shows a group of Japanese officers gathered around a flickering map, faces etched with confusion and fear. Was this moment an admission of strategic obsolescence? And why did such realizations fail to translate into effective countermeasures before the fleet's collapse? Yet, even amid defeat, the story of the Alan M. Sumner-class destroyers is not merely one of technological triumph, but of human endurance. Crew diaries describe relentless drills, sleepless watches, and the grim determination to master new tools of war. A black-and-white portrait of a destroyer crew, faces smeared with grease and sweat, reflects a generation thrust into a rapidly evolving combat environment. This human dimension, adaptation under pressure, remains obscured beneath the layers of tactical analysis. Could it be that the fusion of technology and tenacity, rather than technology alone, forged the deadly efficiency of the Sumners? And what lessons might this hold for navies facing unknown threats today? As the final months of the Pacific conflict unfolded, the Alan M. Sumner-class destroyers continued their relentless patrols, embodying a new paradigm of naval warfare. A series of intercepted Japanese orders from July 1945 reveal a fatal resignation. Avoid confrontation with enemy destroyers at all costs. Preserve remaining vessels for homeland defense. The desperation etched in these words contrasts sharply with the confident reports from Sumner crews, whose radar screens rarely blinked without revealing enemy movement. A striking photograph taken aboard one such destroyer captures the crew, gathered around a glowing radar console, eyes fixed on the invisible threat that spelled doom for the Imperial Navy. Was this technological edge the final nail in the coffin for Japan's once mighty fleet? Or did the sum of miscalculations, technological gaps, and dwindling morale compose a more complex symphony of defeat? In the twilight of the war, the Japanese Naval Command sought to preserve what little remained of their maritime power, but the damage was done. Archival maps show shrinking zones of control, supply lines severed, and isolated outposts cut off from reinforcements. Sumner-class destroyers, operating in concert with carrier groups and submarines, enforced a chokehold that Japan could neither break nor evade. Survivor accounts speak of encounters marked less by grand battles and more by sudden, brutal strikes, fleeting moments where the destroyers appeared like specters before vanishing into the mist. The question remains, how did a class of ships, initially underestimated and overshadowed by larger warships, come to embody the lethal heart of the Allied naval offensive? What does this reveal about the hidden dynamics of technological evolution and strategic foresight in wartime?